All right, here's an example of how we're going to use the context-lib uh, package to create custom context manager without defining that enter and exit that we talked about in this week's lesson. So we're going to create some functions called, they're just dummy functions. They do fake start, stop, and backup of data of a database. But they're options that basically could happen at any time. So we're going to define a function called, we're going to call it def DB handler. And this is going to be our database handler. And then we want to go ahead and within our process, we want to go ahead and do a stop database. With this yield, we're going to do whatever we need to do. And then finally, we want to start the database back up. And what we can go ahead here is just use a simple with DB handler and then call backup. Now, the advantage of doing this is that we didn't have to create a whole class and write out everything. If we know what we're going to do, we have a simple process that we want to go ahead and do it. We can handle our start of the resource and the stop of the resource and be able to do this. And if you think of this in context of doing data editing, let's say, you can write a context manager very easily to take a search cursor, a data access search cursor in ArcPy, and extend it out in order to do that. The next example I want to talk about, and more with the context manager, is using a custom decorator. So here we're going to extend our function for a database handler decorator to make our shorthand even shorter. In this case, we are defining a class in advance when we define our enter and exit, but when you apply it to a function, it's a lot shorter. So we just do the @db handler decorator, and that's it, and we get it done. So if we go ahead and run this, we can see that our database stopped, database backed up, and database started both occurred. Continuing on with some of our code from our class, uh, we also talked about concepts of slicing and how we can go ahead and do this, uh, and also applying things to um, different ways of handling lists and breaking them up, and list comprehension. So we didn't have a specific slide on list comprehension, but we can break down processes to use list comprehension to add it in. So taking the example on the top, let's say we have a function called run calculation that takes an integer and it returns an integer. So we want to take this function and we want to call it 20 times. We're going to go ahead and append the numbers to the list and print them out. We can see we have multiple lines of code here to do our for loop. We have a variable that we have to declare here for the numbers. We have to declare the range, another line to the indentation. It can be rewritten in a one-liner called list comprehension, where we just say open brackets, the function we want to do, and then do for I in range. Now you can do this for almost anything, and you can even add conditional. So I could say if it's an odd number, then do X, else Y. But this is another neat feature within Python that allows you to do little shortcuts with your code. To take a closer look at the um, getter and setter properties that we talked about before, uh, you can go ahead and define your class as coordinates, define the initializer, set your private variables, and now we're ready to go ahead and do our getter. So we could do def latitude and then return our value. And then we could do latitude.setter, pass in our value that we want to set, do our check, and set our variable. The other thing that I wanted to point out about this example is this top line up here that says from underscore underscore future underscore underscore import annotation. So anybody who is using Python uh, less than 3.11, I'm using Python 3.11 for this course, you need to add that at the top of your class or these or syntax will not work. These are shorthand syntax that really help speed up things along the line. So it's always a good habit to add those in. All right, thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Have a good day.